Today, this week, we're talking about subject-verb agreement for Bellwork. This is really similar to some of the stuff we've talked about in weeks past in the sense that when I start talking about this, you're probably going to think like, duh, but hopefully you'll notice that as we go along, it gets a little more challenging. This is, as is most of our stuff during Bellwork, definitely something you're going to want to know for the ACT. And I'll talk through a little bit today kind of the specific ways that the ACT will try and trick you in regard to subject-verb agreement. So, quick review. Complete sentence needs a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. I think, had this as part of our Bellwork week 1, but if we take this sentence, a wasp flew into Kylie Jenner's mouth, we can first ask ourselves what the verb is. That's typically the easier of the two to identify. So we say flew, and then we ask who or what is doing the action. It is the wasp that is doing the flying, so that will be the subject of our sentence. So both of these sentences are written correctly. These probably seem kind of basic to you. The airplane is delayed. The airplanes are delayed. We have our subjects. We have our verbs. So here's the general rule, and here I want you to really pay attention to this because there was some confusion in the wording of this last year, and I want to make sure that it's very clear. So how we explain this is that the general rule is that if the subject is singular, meaning there's one of them, the verb will be plural, meaning that it will have an S or an ES at the end. Additionally, if the subject is plural, the verb will be singular. If we have multiple subjects, then this verb does not have an E or S at the end. So that's all that the plural and singular means. We had some people thinking last year that we were trying to say that the car screech to a stop is correct, and it's not. So if you're confused about the wording on this, please let me know. But all that we're trying to get at with these rules here is that generally with normal subjects, normal verbs, if we have a singular subject, there is one car, then our verb will have an S or an ES at the end. And on the opposite end, if we have more than one of the subject, we have more than one car, then our verb will not have an an ES or an S at the end. So that's all that we're meaning by that. So in order to practice with this, again, I want you to practice identifying verbs and subjects. The easiest way that we've found to do this is to first identify the verb. So ask, what is the action word or what are the action words in the sentence? And then identify who or what is doing that thing. So the lasagna looks gross. Looks is our verb. What's the thing that looks gross? The lasagna. I spilled coffee on my shirt this morning. What is the verb? Spilled. Who or what did the spilling? I did. The dog jumped over the fence. So it's the verb jumped. Who or what did the jumping? The dog. So here's kind of where it gets a little tricky. And these are certainly not the trickiest of the tricky. But you can see how when the subjects and the verbs are separated in a sentence, it does make it a little more difficult. So that's typically what the ACT will do. They're going to put phrases or descriptors in between the subject and the verb, so it makes it a little harder to identify each of them. So here we have Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, wanted to create high-quality athletic gear. So the verb is wanted or wanted to create would be the verb phrase. Who or what wanted to create the athletic gear? Phil Knight. This one gets a little tricky. Improvements for the new highway are going to be implemented soon. So the verb is are, or you could say are going. You could even say are going to be implemented if you wanted the whole verb phrase. But when you ask what are the things that will be implemented soon, it's the improvements. The highway is not being implemented. The improvements are being implemented. So that's why we need the are here instead of an is. And lastly, we have my boss, who is extremely kind to his employees, gives generous raises. So we ask what is the verb gives, who or what is doing the giving, the boss. So you wouldn't say my boss give generous raises. You would say my boss gives generous raises. We just have this little descriptor in between that makes it a little more difficult to identify what that subject is. So that's that. Good luck on your Bellwork this week. Make sure to use these notes as needed, and happy grammaring.